The quantum spurs on my boots left trails of dying blue fire as I sprinted through the smoke-filled corridors of Riati Station, my helmet's HUD painting a picture of hell itself. Behind me, 7 of the finest knights the colonies had ever produced followed in tight formation, our armor's systems screaming warnings about the mechanical nightmares pouring through the station's breached hull. Knight Commander Jake Beauregard to Station Control, I called into my comm, already knowing there wouldn't be an answer. The centipede bots had hit the command center first, 12 feet of segmented metal death with plasma cutters for mandibles, and enough legs to move like liquid lightning through zero-G corridors. Static answered me back, just like it had been answering for the past 6 hours, ever since we'd received the distress call while mopping up the last of these metal bastards 3 systems away. Commander, Knight Caleb Montgomery's voice cracked through our tactical net, his usual easy humor replaced by grim determination. Hangar bay's just ahead. Sensors are showing. He paused, and I could hear the pain in his silence. Showing a lot of civilian heat signatures and a whole lot more mechanical ones. I touched the brim of my helmet's integrated Stetson, feeling the familiar weight of tradition even as my armor's systems calculated our odds of survival. The math wasn't pretty. We'd been too late. Always too late. The extermination fleet had hit Riati Station while we were chasing ghosts in the outer rim, thinking we'd dealt with their main force. This was supposed to be a trading hub and residential station, merchants, dock workers, and families who'd made their living moving goods between the inner colonies. No military value, no strategic importance. Just 30,000 honest, hard-working people who'd trusted that someone would come for them when the machines decided humanity had lived long enough. "Boys," I said as we reached the final corner before the hangar bay, the sound of plasma fire and screaming echoing off the walls. "We're about to walk into a shitstorm. Station's lost, command's dead, and extraction's not coming. But there's still civvies in that hangar who need to get out." Knight Roy Calhoun checked the charge on his plasma rifle, the weapon humming with deadly purpose. "How many ships left operational?" 3, Knight Dale Shelby replied, his sniper rifle already tracking movement through the smoke. "Commercial transports may be enough space for 5,000 people if they pack 'em tight." The math was brutal. 30,000 civilians, space for 15,000. And between them and salvation, an army of mechanical centipedes that had already torn through the station's security forces like they were made of paper. "We hold the hangar," I said simply. "We buy them time to get those ships loaded and away, whatever it takes." Knight Vernon Crawford hefted his quantum-enhanced war spear, the traditional weapon sparking with barely contained energy. "And after that, Commander?" I looked at each of my knights, Caleb from New Alabama with his easy grin already fading into warrior focus, Roy from Carolina Prime checking his weapon with the methodical care of a man who knew this might be his last fight, Dale from Georgia Station with his calm eyes behind his helmet's visor, Vernon from Mississippi Colony gripping his spear like it was the last anchor to home, Glenn Whitmore from Tennessee Ridge, Buck Caldwell from Louisiana Bayou, and Earl Richmond from Virginia Falls, all of them ready, their armor gleaming despite the smoke and carnage. And then there was Tommy Bowie from Austin Colony, barely 22 and the youngest knight I'd ever served with, his hands steady despite the fear I could see in his eyes. "After that," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "we make sure these machines remember what happens when they mess with human civilians." We rounded the corner into hell itself. The hangar bay stretched out before us like a vision of the apocalypse. 3 civilian transports sat on their landing pads, their engines already spinning up while desperate families crowded toward the boarding ramps. Dock workers carried children on their shoulders, merchants clutched precious cargo manifests, and ordinary people who'd never asked for anything more than an honest day's work found themselves running for their lives. Between them and safety, hundreds of the centipede bots swarmed across the deck plates, their segmented bodies moving with nightmare precision as they cut down anyone who tried to reach the ships. Each machine was a masterpiece of death. 12 feet of articulated metal segments, plasma cutters that could slice through starship armor, and enough legs to let them move in any direction at speeds that made my eyes water. They flowed across the hangar like a metallic tide, and everywhere they touched, people died. "Light 'em up!" I roared, both peacemakers roaring as quantum-enhanced rounds tore into the nearest cluster of machines. My knights opened fire as one, their weapons painting the hangar with streams of coherent death. Caleb's plasma rifle carved through 3 centipede bots in a single sweep, their bodies exploding in showers of molten metal. Roy's laser carbine punched precise holes through mechanical heads, dropping machines with surgical accuracy. But for every machine we killed, 2 more seemed to take its place. "Civilians, get to the ships!" I called out through my helmet's external speakers, gunning down a centipede bot that had been scuttling toward a family with young children. "We'll cover you." The evacuation turned into a fighting retreat. We formed a moving wall of steel and determination, our weapons never silent, as we carved a path through the mechanical horde. Dale's sniper rifle cracked repeatedly from an overwatch position, each shot taking out machines that were getting too close to the streams of fleeing dock workers and merchants. "First transport's loaded," Glenn called out, his twin plasma pistols spinning death as he covered a group of cargo handlers making their desperate run. "Launching now!" Through the chaos, I watched the first ship lift off, its engines screaming as it clawed for space. 5,000 saved. 25,000 to go. "Second transport 30% loaded," Buck reported, his quantum sword carving through a centipede bot that had gotten too close. The machine's plasma cutter barely missed his helmet as he brought the blade around in a perfect arc. That's when I realized what we had to do. The math was brutal, but it was also clear. We weren't all making it out of this, but maybe one of us could. "Tommy," I called out to our youngest knight who was laying down suppressing fire with his plasma rifle. "Get over here!" The young knight from Austin Colony sprinted to my position, his movement still carrying that eager energy that reminded me why I'd recommended him for the knights in the first place. "Yes, sir, Commander." I looked around at my other knights, and I could see the same thought in their eyes. Vernon nodded grimly. Roy touched his helmet in agreement. We'd all come to the same conclusion. "Son," I said, putting my gauntleted hand on Tommy's shoulder, "you're getting on that 3rd transport." "Sir?" Tommy's voice cracked with confusion. "I don't understand." "You're the youngest," Dale called out from his overwatch position, never taking his eye off his scope. "Got the most life ahead of you. Someone needs to survive to tell the story," Caleb added, his plasma rifle never stopping its deadly work. "To make sure folks remember what happened here." Tommy's helmet snapped from one knight to another, his breathing rapid in the calm. No, sir, I can't. I won't abandon my brothers." "It ain't abandonment, son," Vernon said gently, his war spear crackling with energy. "It's duty. Someone has to live, to carry our memory forward." "I order you to get on that transport, Knight Bowie," I said, my voice carrying all the authority of command. "That's not a request. Commander, please," Tommy's voice broke. "I can't leave you all here to die." "You can and you will," Roy said firmly. "That's what we're here for, kid. To make sure the innocent get out alive. And right now that includes you." Earl's plasma cannon roared as he cut down another wave of machines. "Second transport's away, 3rd one's at 50%. Tommy, you need to move now." I grabbed Tommy by the shoulders, looking into his young face through his helmet's visor. "Listen to me, son. You're going to live through this. You're going to go home, find yourself a good woman, raise some kids, and tell them about the day 8 Texas Knights held the line at Riati Station. That's your mission now." Tears were streaming down Tommy's face inside his helmet. "Sir, I can't." You can," I said softly. "You will, because that's what knights do. We follow orders, even the hard ones." Buck and Glenn moved to flank Tommy, their weapons still firing but their intent clear. Tommy looked around at all of us one last time, his young face torn between duty and brotherhood. "3rd transport, 70%, Glenn called out. "Last call, Tommy." "Go," I ordered. "That's an order from your commanding officer and a request from your friend. Live, Tommy." Live and remember us." With a sob that carried over the comm, Tommy sprinted toward the transport, his plasma rifle laying down, covering fire even as he ran toward safety. I watched him reach the boarding ramp, saw him turn back one last time to look at us, and then he was gone. 7, I said to my remaining knights as the third transport lifted off with its precious cargo. 7 of us to finish this? 7's plenty, Vernon replied, his war spear singing as it carved through another machine. That's when the machines changed tactics. Instead of the chaotic swarm they'd been using, they suddenly formed up into coordinated attack patterns. My HUD lit up with warnings as targeting lasers painted our armor from a dozen directions. "They're learning," Earl warned, his heavy plasma cannon cycling through full auto as he tried to suppress the advancing formation. "Getting smarter." "Don't matter how smart they get," Vernon replied, his war spear punching through the thorax of a machine that had tried to flank our position. "Still just machines. Still bleed oil when you stick 'em right." But the machines were adapting faster than we could kill them, and our ammunition wasn't infinite. A centipede bot got through our defensive line, but there were no more civilians to threaten. The hangar was empty except for us and the mechanical tide. Dale's rifle spoke once, turning the machine's head into scrap metal, but the effort left him exposed. 3 more machines swarmed his position. "Dale!" Roy shouted, sprinting across the hangar to help his friend. I watched it happen in slow motion, my HUD tracking the trajectories with brutal precision. Dale's rifle spoke twice more, taking out 2 of the machines, but the third one's plasma cutter found the gap between his helmet and chest armor. The beam went clean through, and Georgia Station's finest sniper crumpled to the deck. "Dale!" Roy reached his friend's position, his laser carbine cutting down the killer machine, but it was too late. Dale was gone, his rifle still clutched in hands that would never pull another trigger. "He's gone, Roy," I called out, my voice breaking despite the battle raging around us. "Don't let it be for nothing." Roy nodded grimly, taking up Dale's position and grabbing the fallen sniper rifle. His hands shook as he worked the bolt, but his first shot took a machine's head clean off at 800 meters. We were running out of ammunition, running out of time, and running out of knights. Earl's plasma cannon finally overheated, the weapon's cooling system failing under the sustained fire. He dropped it and drew his quantum sword, the blade singing as he carved into the mechanical tide. But without his heavy firepower, the machines pressed closer. A centipede bot's plasma cutter found the joint in Earl's knee armor, slicing through the protective plating like it was tissue paper. He went down hard, but kept fighting from the ground, his sword work keeping the machines at bay, even as his life bled out onto the deck plates. "Earl's down," Buck called out, rushing to help his friend. "Stay in position," I ordered, though it tore my heart to say it. "Keep 'em back." Earl looked up at me from where he lay, his face visible through his helmet's visor, and smiled that same easy Virginia smile he'd worn since we were kids training in the colonial academies. "Tell my ma I died like a knight should," he said, and then his sword flashed one final time, taking 3 machines with him as his armor's power finally failed. That's when the heavy units arrived. My head painted new contacts as they emerged from the station's depths. Centipede bots the size of hover tanks, their plasma cutters replaced with weapons that could level buildings. The deck plates cracked under their weight as they advanced. "Oh, hell!" Caleb breathed, his plasma rifle's charge indicator flashing red. The lead heavy unit's main weapon began to cycle, building charge for a shot that would end us all. I made a decision that I knew would be my last. "Vernon and Caleb with me," I ordered, sprinting toward the heavy unit. "Buck, Lanroy, keep 'em occupied." We charged across the hangar like knights of old, our quantum spurs leaving trails of fire as we closed with mechanical death itself. Vernon's war spear built up charge as he ran, the weapon's quantum matrix singing with power. Caleb's plasma rifle spoke its last few rounds, each shot precisely placed to blind the machine's sensors. The heavy unit's main gun swiveled toward us, its targeting systems locking on. I could see the energy building in its barrel, enough power to reduce us to constituent atoms. "For humanity!" I roared, diving toward the machine's underbelly where its armor was thinnest. "For humanity!" Vernon and Caleb shouted as one, their weapons finding their marks. Vernon's war spear punched through the heavy unit's main power coupling, quantum energy cascading through its systems like liquid lightning. Caleb's last shot took out its central processor, sending the machine into a death spiral of sparks and molten metal. But the explosion took them with it. I watched my friends disappear in a ball of fire and twisted metal, their sacrifice buying us those last precious moments. I stood alone in the hangar now, surrounded by the mechanical tide, my ammunition almost gone and my armor's power failing. Around me lay the bodies of some of the finest knights the colonies had ever produced, each one having given everything for people they'd never met. Buck was down near where the loading ramps had been, his quantum sword still in his hand, 3 dead machines around him. Glenn had made it almost to the hangar doors before the machines overwhelmed him, his twin pistols empty but his spirit unbroken. Roy was the last to fall, besides me, still firing Dale's rifle even as the machines swarmed his position. His final shot took out a centipede bot that might have escaped to threaten someone else, somewhere else. I holstered my empty peacemakers and drew my quantum sword, the blade singing its death song as the remaining machines closed in. My HUD was dark now, my armor's power finally exhausted, but I could still feel the weight of tradition on my shoulders. "Well, boys," I said to the ghosts of my fallen knights, watching the mechanical tide wash toward me, "reckon we did what we came to do. 15,000 souls safe because we stood here today." The centipede bots surrounded me, their plasma cutters gleaming in the hangar's emergency lighting. But they hesitated for just a moment, their artificial intelligences perhaps recognizing something in my stance that spoke of traditions older than their programming. I touched the brim of my helmet Stetson one last time, thinking of homeworlds under distant suns, of the families we'd saved, and the friends who'd fallen beside me. "The eyes of Texas are upon you," I whispered, and then my sword flashed one final time. Later, when the relief fleet arrived to find Riati Station dark and lifeless, they found the hangar bay, 7 bodies in Texas night armor, surrounded by the wreckage of hundreds of mechanical killers. Knight Tommy Bowie stood among the recovery teams, tears streaming down his face as he looked upon his fallen brothers. On the walls, someone had carved a simple message with a quantum blade. "Remember the Riati, 7. They died so others might live." And below that, in smaller letters that spoke of home and heritage, "Texas remembers its sons." The 15,000 civilians who escaped in those 3 transports would carry that memory with them to new worlds, new homes. It would tell their children and their children's children about 7 knights who stood between them and death, who paid the ultimate price so that hope might survive. Tommy Bowie would spend the rest of his life telling that story, honoring the memory of the brothers who forced him to live when they chose to die. In the halls of the Knight Academy, in the colony worlds, in the quiet moments when people needed to remember that heroes were real, he would speak their names. Jake Beauregard, Caleb Montgomery, Roy Calhoun, Dale Shelby, Vernon Crawford, Glenn Whitmore, Buck Caldwell, Earl Richmond, 7 knights who held the line at Riati Station. Because that's what Texas Knights do. We stand, we fight, and when necessary we die, but we never, ever let the innocent fall on our watch. The eyes of Texas were upon Riati Station that day, and they saw heroes. Many thanks to my channel members and Pathfinders. You all make these videos possible. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.